If you're someone that is out of time, you're constantly in service of others, potentially reactive to the things that you've got coming up, team, family, business, this episode is for you. Today, business coach Teresa Strong Myrick shares some amazing strategies on how you can take back control of your time and create more peace in your life. Her message is you have to let go to grow. Teresa, why business coaching for you?
That's such a great and loaded question, Michelle. Brief story is I started as a life coach and had my life coaching business. And I was doing that virtually, had clients all over the world, did it from my computer. 2020 changed everything for me, not just because of the pandemic, but because I lost two very key people in my life, non-related to COVID. And what I learned about my business was I had not set up my business so that it can work without. So when I was dealing with those losses, I was mourning and grieving. I wasn't a really good life coach for those who needed it. And I came to a point where I had to make a decision. Was I going to close my doors and start over again and build a team, or was I to look for a team? I decided to look for a team at that time because that's the space and the capacity that I had. I went looking, actually thought I'd end up in California because, Cali, life coaching, it just kind of goes hand in hand. And as soon as I was ready to pack up and move and go wherever, the good Lord took me, I found Actioncoach in my backyard. So I looked at what they had to offer, what they were looking for, and I was able to check off all the boxes. It was like, that is a perfect match. I can't believe this. Went through their process, got to know the team. But by the time I said yes and they said yes to me, it was absolutely a great fit for both of us. And it allowed me, and on top of it allowed me to do what I had not been able to do for myself, which was help me to build a business that can work with or without. And so now I'm able to do that for other, especially women in business who seem to be pulled in so many different directions when it comes to just life in general. But especially as business owners, we could be pulled to help a family member. We could be pulled to help with the kids, our spouses, just a number of things. And it's just so important for us to build a business that can run and function without us being in it day to day. So now I get to help other business owners, women in business, do just.
So it's quite a foreign concept for many of us to really think about building a business that can work without us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a long-term plan?
Absolutely. But it has to start in the beginning. We have to start with that end in mind, because I like to tell people it's okay to want to work until you die, but it's not okay to have to. So just so that you have those systems in place and people in place so that it can operate just in case you have to step away temporarily. It doesn't have to be a permanent situation, but to at least have the freedom so that you're not away, on vacation or helping a loved one and still worried and stressed out about the business.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes, even though we plan for that, we might plan for that to happen. Sometimes things can happen outside of our control. It might be a health issue or something like that. So it's almost critical, really, for the success of your business and security for your family and team to put these systems in place. So I love that. Teresa, you mentioned, life coach to business coaching. And it was a perfect fit, you said, and ticked all the boxes. I mean, life coaching and business coaching, this might seem like an obvious question, but what's the difference?
So the difference is life coaching is helping you to put the pieces together of your life. And it's more of a personal development focus and just who you are as a person. For me, in my particular life coaching, is helping you to kind of get rid of the results of the trauma. Like some of the habits that we build are because of the trauma that we haven't really negotiated or dealt with. So that was the particular life coaching I was doing. So, and of course, business coaching is all about building the business. However, and we're dealing with humans, so you really can't have business coaching without personal development and some sort of life coaching. So that's why it was perfect for me because I'm still dealing with humans. So I'm able to deal with a human who is building the company. Because as we know, the company can't go any further than you as the business. So it was just a perfect marriage for me.
So how much of it really, when you think about coaching, is about the business versus the person and the personal development?
The personal development is first and foremost. It's so funny that people will come in worried about their business and how their business is doing. And the first thing we do is deal with their mindset and just their limiting beliefs about what they can and cannot do, what is possible for their business. That's the first thing we deal with. Their negative self-talk. We deal with that first before we can focus on the business. Because if we do all the work to work on strategies and your mindset is blocking you even doing what needs to be done, then we wasted time.
And how much does that actually keep people stuck? And then how do you help them move through that?
It's getting to the core of it. So being a coach, you have to be a really good listener. So business owners won't come and say, that they are having mental blocks or limitations. It is you working on their assignments or giving them things to do or them giving them strategies and they come back over and over again. They haven't done the work. That's when we start to kind of backtrack and say, oh, so what's going on? Like, is this no longer important to you? What is going on that this is not getting done? And that's when we can start to unpack what the head talk is around that particular strategy or the thing that they need to do. Like, for instance, network. If they have negative connotations of networking, they think they have to go into networking to sell and they don't like sales, then we're not doing any of it. So it's reprogramming almost what they think certain things are. So they may come into with a world vision of how business is supposed to go or how business can be based on the people that they've been talking to. But when they come into Action Coach, we deal with successful business owners. We deal with forward-thinking business owners who are ready to put things in action. And they are doing things that the common business owners are not doing, which is why they are successful. So it's putting them in an environment with those individuals, because it's one thing to hear from the coach, but it's another thing to hear from other business owners. So just that, working on their affirmations, their self-talk, all of those things combined help them to come to a different reality, as to a different perspective as to what reality can be for them and their business.
So let's unpack that and just walk us through the steps on, what it looks like. So you talked about affirmations and things like that. So what's the process that you can share?
So the process with the affirmations is when you are making a decision or if you're in the process of doing anything and you feel stuck, what are you telling yourself? And if you start paying attention to the things that you're telling yourself that are negative, because negativity comes to us very easily. So if you can start pick up on those things that are stopping you from moving, then when we call it out, we name it, and then we create a positive affirmation, because affirmations can be negative or positive. So we take those negative affirmations and make them positive.
What's an example of that?
So example, I am not a good business owner. And turning that into, I am making the steps, I am learning the material to become a great business owner or successful business owner. So it's just doing little tweaks like that, making sure that's something you start your day with. And say that to yourself over and over again when you hear that negative chatter start to pop up. Those things will work because we can control what we say to ourselves. We won't control all the thoughts that pop in our heads, but we can control what we do with those. And that's what's important.
Yeah, it's interesting when you understand the psychology behind those positive I am statements. At first, when you start saying them, you don't believe them, right? But how often should you say it? And should you say it in front of the mirror, or should you listen to it, record it, and then listen to it?
All the things.
All of the above.
All of the above. When just saying it doesn't work, then record yourself and listen to yourself saying it. When that doesn't work, say it to yourself in the mirror. If you need all three of those, do all three of those things. Because this is the key into your success, is because once you do it with you, then you will recognize it in your team members and you can help them maneuver through those things as well. So it's just really important for us to be cognizant of what those negative, and the mind chatter is, because every human is filled with negative thoughts. And for every one negative thought, the stats are different on this, but the last one I heard was like, you need to hear something positive at least 17 times to combat one.
Wow.
Right. And some studies stay up to like 97 times. So it just depends on the study that you're looking at. But the idea is that for one negative, you need multiple positive statements to combat one. So why not get ourselves trained so that we can start to tackle that right away? And eventually you won't say those things to yourself, because as you say those things, as you say it, you start to do it and you start to become it. So it's no longer a truth for you.
Okay, so we talked about affirmations. What else?
Being around people who are in the same frame of mind as that. Being around, because you can be in, I don't like the term of the same, how do they say it, of the same mindset. That's not the term I'm looking for. But there is evidence that the people that you're around your environment will absolutely influence who you are and who you become. So putting you in spaces where there are other business owners who are learning the same information in terms of how to build their business, who are having successes, who may be having some of the same obstacles that you're having, and they're giving you ideas on how they're getting through it, then you don't feel alone, because that's some of the issue, is feeling alone and trapped into, just your mindset and what you're saying to yourself. But if you get around other business owners who have some of those same things going on, then you feel more comfortable to be yourself and you can get more help. Because some of the issue is, if you're stuck in your own mindset in your own way, then you won't allow yourself to hear from other people. So it's just good to be in a room with other business owners who are successful, who are doing the things that they need to do. They are forward thinking and they're just moving in a direction where they really want success, and they want success for you as well, because you're part of this membership and part of this team.
Yeah, you can learn from each other. It's like that saying, your net worth is a result of your network.
Yes.
So being around people who are committed to their learning and growth too,
Yes.
really does help you improve and grow. So I love that. So, okay, so affirmations, I am statements, being around a network of people. What else can people do to kind of shift their mindset?
Have a coach who holds them accountable. Seriously, coach or a best friend or someone who is going to call you out on your stuff, right? Who's going to call you to something different. Because in terms of coaching, I always think, I am not attached to your limitation. So I'm going to call you to something different, because I don't know what the chatter that you have in your head. I will look at you as an individual, see what the wonderful things that you have already done in your business, and help pull you to something greater. So have people in your corner who are going to challenge you on those negative things that you're saying about yourself or your abilities, and not only hold you accountable to who you say you want to be, but remind you of who you are. Because as business owners, the other thing is that we don't celebrate, especially women in business. We will not celebrate all of our achievements. We will continue to chase the next goal and continue to go, and not stop and say, I've achieved. I've done a wonderful job. I am a great human being. I'm a great mother. I'm a great business owner. We won't stop and give ourselves that acknowledgement. So now we feel as if we just are unaccomplished. We haven't done all the things that we need to do. We are, we're inadequate. We'll believe all those lies instead of believing the truth of the evidence that we have produced.
So what are some ways, you mentioned, women often don't take the time to celebrate. And is that, why is that? And is it do we see that as a pat on our back? And we're always often in service of others, and then what are the ways that we can celebrate?
So We've been conditioned. We've been conditioned to serve and take care of others. We are applauded for sacrificing ourselves for the benefit of others, all while we are in breakdown and overwhelm and burnout, right? It just does not serve us well. So some of the things that you can do to celebrate is first to acknowledge. That's the first thing, to acknowledge and to give ourselves permission to celebrate, to give ourselves permission to take a break and not feel guilty, because we are humans who have feelings, who have emotions, who have limitations. We are human, and it is okay for us to take that break. One of the things I have my business owners do is to schedule breaks into their calendar, particularly those who have a well-scheduled calendar. That's fine to have a number of things that you need to do, but also to schedule breaks when you know that you have to exert a lot of energy, whether that's in a meeting or with your team, or if that's in a sales call or whatever it is, to schedule time to prepare on the calendar and schedule time to debrief after whatever that thing is, to give ourselves the time to just breathe a little bit and ground ourselves. And I also have them keep a daily, if not weekly, so that they actually have to sit down with themselves and write down their win.
I love that. A
Yes,
daily or weekly win log.
and we talk about them in session. Say that again.
I'm definitely going to implement that straight away, and also for my team, because it is often you get to the end of the month and as a community, we often talk about, ask each other, what are our wins for the month? And it's hard to find them, but they're there.
They are there. And I keep mine. It's a running log. I don't go from day to day. I just keep it on the same log and just write down all my wins for that particular week and just add to it every week, because it's just so important. I started over every quarter, but every week I'm writing down what my wins were so I can remember, I can celebrate, I can feel accomplished, and not just continue that, that whole I'm chasing the next thing, the next goal, because that just can just put us in such a negative space sometimes.
I want to unpack burnout. You mentioned that. And so you've just shared some strategies that can help with that. So celebrate the wins, putting space in your diary, your calendar for break times.
Yes.
When you're, and I don't know if addiction's the right word to use, but when you are so driven, which often a lot of particularly female entrepreneurs are, is it chasing the next thing, or is it that energy and drive that you have? And is that necessarily, that's a good thing. It's not something to judge, but how do you embrace that and then still also live in flow?
My favorite question is, how's it serving you? How is it serving you? So have you created harmony in your life? What is not working because you're doing this so much? If you're so focused on your business, what is not getting your attention? Now, if you have created a harmonious life where you are driven in all things and you feel good, you're healthy, you're well, you feel that you're at a good space, then I'm not going to tell you need to do anything different. But if you are suffering from medical things that seem chronic, if you are missing deadlines, if you're not spending time with your kids, are you complaining about, if you have those things going on, then we have to address it. Then we start to unpack where should you really be spending your time and what can you take off your schedule? Must you do all the things that are on your schedule, or could someone else? Right? And is that a reality, or is that a pride thing that you feel that you have to be in all of these spaces, that only you can do this? Then we start to talk about what's really going on and what's really important, and start to label. Just have you write down all the things that you're responsible for doing, that you feel responsible for doing. What's on your list of things to do? And then breaking those things down. Like, what are those things you have to do that bring you the most income or the most joy? Or, we categorize those. And then those things that bring us no joy, they don't require any skill, or they just, why are we doing this in the first place? Then that needs to either be deleted or given to someone else to do. But it's taking the time to do it. That's the whole issue, is making the time to really assess what you're doing and why you're doing it.
So we often find that we're in autopilot, though, a lot of the time, and can often be quite reactive versus proactive,
Yes.
taking back control of things like your calendar and
Mm-hmm.
your life. Really,
Mm-hmm.
you're in reactive to kids' needs, to
Yes.
partners, to the business, to your team. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is. And also, you can teach people how to deal with you. You really can. If you set boundaries, people will either respect your boundaries or they'll start to fall off.
Well,
And that's just the reality.
is it boundaries for yourself too? Like, do you need to
Yes.
reply to every phone call, every message, like with all the channels now to keep track of, with email, with, Facebook Messenger, with WhatsApp, with phone calls, with text message? I mean, there's a lot of kind of.
Michelle, but I think we forget that we can control what we do. We can control what we do. So we don't have to answer a message every time a message comes in. We can schedule a time that we're only focused on emails. We can schedule a time in the morning and a time in the afternoon so we don't miss those important things. We can schedule time with our team members to say, hey, we can have our one-to-one time on this particular day each week so that when they come to you with different issues, you can say, hey, we have a meeting set up. Can it wait for the meeting? And what you'll find is that people will begin to solve their own problems before they even get to you. But you are in control of that 24 hours that you get. And if you don't control that, other people will. Other people, things, the distractions, everything else will control it. But you can absolutely set your time up and your day up and honor that time. If you honor it, it can work for you. It takes some time, but it is worth it to at least start with one thing, one block of time that you're going to focus in on this one thing. You're going to tell other people, this is what I'm working on right now. And I'll happily talk to you at such and such.
So what I'm really getting from what you're sharing is
Mm-hmm.
that it's taking responsibility, isn't it? You actually have the power and control, that
Yes.
you're in control of everything in your life, and not to blame your external environment. You can really take control and responsibility of your own life, your day, your business, your own
Yes.
time, essentially, which is
Mm-hmm.
empowering.
It is.
Blaming outside yourself feels disempowering, but you can take responsibility instead of blaming the external things, and that feels really empowering.
When I started to use, because I use this advice myself, when I'm telling people to do anything that I wouldn't do for myself. But when I started to take control of my time, when I started to say no more often to the things that I really didn't want to or need to do, I felt more free. It was so freeing for me. When I gave people their things back, when I wasn't trying to take control over their lives and mine, when I wasn't trying to do their jobs and my jobs, right? When I allow people to work in their genius and do what they do, this is even in your home, right? I always give this example, Michelle. So I have 3 boys. And when they were coming up, we taught them, the household chores, how to wash the dishes. So my youngest son, he had just his own way of doing things. My husband would worry about the way he was doing. I was only concerned about the result. So he would give him the job to do and then hover over him as he's doing it. I was like, well, you didn't for him. Just hovering over him. Like after you taught him what the goal of this job is, to get the dishes clean, right? Then leave him to get it done. So that's just my example of when you give people a responsibility, you equip them on how to do it and what to do and what the end results are that are required. Then leave them to do it. If they make a mistake, then you step in to give them correction. But if I look back over those dishes and they're clean, we're good. Now, if I look back over them and they're dirty, we got to start back over, right? But I'm not showing up until after.
It's so funny you just used that dishes analogy, because my son was over for breakfast. He's 23, and he washes up, and he takes seriously half an hour. He takes forever to wash the dishes. And I said to him the other day, babe, like, it's literally like there's only 2 of us, and you've just spent half an hour washing the dishes. Like, they don't have to be pristine. And he goes, you know what, Mum? He goes, I'm so paranoid of not doing it right because Dad spent the whole time when we were kids, like making sure we washed the dishes properly. So it's so funny you use that analogy.
Yes, ma'am. We have to, my coworker Tony likes to say, you have to let go to grow. You have to let go to grow. And that's just one of those things. After you have equipped them, you have to let go and allow them to even make a mistake, because that's okay as well. We can always come back afterwards and address whatever that is. But trust that you trained them enough and well enough that they can handle it and do it.
Yeah, I love that. So what's an example of, a business owner, a client that you've worked with where you've really, that's been so kind of empowering and freeing and how it's changed their life?
Give you an example of a young lady who took over her father's construction company. So she came up in this company. The company is about 25 years old, but Dad wants to retire and he sold the company to her. So she took on not only his business, but his staff that have seen her grow up in the company. So they are, they're like uncles and aunts to her. So she came in just as scared as she possibly could be that she was going to mess things up. Because although she had been working in the business, she had never been an owner of a business. So she came in afraid. Many times she wanted to quit because it was just so overwhelming for her in terms of managing people, putting in systems, because it was an old company where they were writing things down, like things were being done manually. And she's a system-minded person, so she wanted to come in and bring systems. But she's also an introvert. She's also an introvert who now has to bring in sales, has to manage people. And although she was willing to do that, what we had to do with her is, because if you know anything about introverts, it's not that they can't show up and do things that extroverts do, but they need more prep time and they need more recovery time. So what we found out early with her is when she had a busy schedule, she would wipe out. She would completely wipe out and she would be no good for like 3 days. I'm like, okay, wait, this can't happen. And what we did was we baked in time. We just baked in time in the middle of her day. So in the start of her day, she has a ritual of getting up, and she does prayer and meditation. She goes spend some time outside to get grounded. She starts her day, and late in between those major things, she has downtime where she will either go sit in her car and listen to some music. She will go take a walk around. She'll take her shoes off and just stand outside. But things that just helps her to get grounded and to stay in a feeling of control. And the other thing she had to do as well, because I went to the office one day just to watch how things go. And people were getting up out of their seats, out of their offices, walking down the hall to her office to ask her one question. Now, I'll give you a stat. Every time you get distracted, it takes about 23 minutes to get back on cue. Right?
Wow.
So I watched 3 of her employees get up multiple times, walk to her, ask her a question, stop her from what she was doing, and go back to their office. So what we implemented was what I said earlier, they have specific time. But she also put a sign on her door to say that she was not available and she was working on the business. So it took a while for her to do that. Took a while for them to get used to it, but now she doesn't have that issue. And she tells me all the time how freeing that was for her, because it just allowed her to feel more in control and not as a victim to. She felt in control of her day. She's doing wonderfully. She's implemented systems for just about everything in the business. She's taking control. She has hired on new clientele, and she has increased the revenue by 50%. So, she is a totally different person because she stopped being a victim to the circumstances, took control, and now she's like a victor. She is just running her business as a real deal businesswoman. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So what's the tip that you've got for people working remotely, running a business remotely, how do you put that sign on your door when you work remote with the team?
You can still send the team what your availability is, right? You can still show up for them to me, it's not that much of a difference because you can still show up for them in the individual meeting. You can still say that I have these hours available for you to contact me about anything that comes up during the day. But you also empower people. This is the other thing about that, Michelle. You empower people to make decisions. Sometimes people are coming to you over and over again because they don't feel that you have the confidence in them to make a decision without you. But if you empower people to tell them these, and you are clear on what their duties are, responsibilities are, then you let them know that, okay, you're good to make a decision on that. You only need to call me if this comes up. That's
Yeah.
also freeing up your time.
Yeah, that struggle was real for me personally. And so I started asking the question, what do you think? How would you do it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that just empowered my team to think for themselves. And they hardly ever come to me for those kind of
Right.
questions.
Right. And we talk here about hero. What is it? Heroitis, where you want to be the hero and rescue everything because it's like a power trip, an ego boost for you that I know all the things and I can do and do everything, but it wears you out. And why hire all these people if you're not going to allow them to work in their genius so that you can work in yours? So that's also part of it too. It's like, what is the reason that you continue to jump in? What is the reason that you're continuing to allow this? Because sometimes it's not about them. It's really about you as an owner. And that's where that personal development comes in. What is my attachment to them needing me for everything?
Oh, that's a great question. What's an example of that note that you've seen?
So I had a plumber who came in with a full team. A full team. He had someone in every position, had been in business for about 10, 12 years, and just did not trust his people to do the work. And he was actually spending him and his wife had come to an agreement that they would stay here in Florida for a certain amount of time, and then they were going to go back up north. It was taking him too long to release the business and get it up to par. So the family, his wife and kids, moved up north. And he stayed here. So he was moving. He was going between, I think it was New York and Florida. He was spending his weekdays here and all his weekends up north when he really didn't have to. When we analyzed his business, looked at the team, he loved his team. He just ranted about his team, how great they were. So why aren't you trusting me? So when we worked through that and he started to kind of release some of the duties, now he had to put some of the processes and systems together and get clear on what their responsibilities were, because that was the fuzzy area. Everyone wasn't sure what they needed to do. So that's why they kept coming to him. Once we got clear on that and he started to release, eventually and it only took him probably about 8 to 9 months where he was able to go and spend the majority of his time up there with his family. And I think he was coming back here he was coming here once a month from a Friday through Sunday to spend time with his team. And then that was it. Because he released.
Because he let go.
He let go. He let go and allowed them to work the business. And they were great. I mean, there were some hiccups that happened, but it wasn't anything major where just, they had to shut the company down. It was just that he had to release and allow them to do the things that he hired them to do and be clear on what those responsibilities were.
So I feel like that's kind of, it could be a billboard, let go to grow.
Yes.
But what I'm getting is that it's not necessarily something you can do overnight, but there's processes and steps that you can take to
Right.
free yourself and be able to let go. Love it.
Right.
So much goodness. Thank you, Teresa. So 3 quick questions to finish. Favorite book and why?
Favorite book is, I pulled it out. The Little Black Book of Connections by Jeffrey Gittel. And because I came into the game of networking thinking that I had to close sales at a networking event, and it stressed me. But this book allowed me to understand that it's all about building connections and relationships and going into to relationships with the mindset of giver's gain, of giving. What can you give? How can you serve? What you can do? And it just changed the whole game for me in terms of networking. And we know networking is just the bedrock of business.
Favorite mentor or coach for you?
So I have two here inside of Actioncoach and inside of this office. And, I'm on a team with award-winning business coaches. It's Scott Bedell. Scott Bedell is just brilliant, and he is able to he's so insightful about business and business concepts that every time he speaks, I get something new from him. So that's it. And on the life coaching side is my coach, Coach Sean Smith, because he's just brilliant in all that he does and understanding human behavior and how to shift and clear trauma.
That's another billboard. Shift and
Yes.
clear. And Teresa,
Yes.
best piece of advice that you've received?
Best piece of advice that I have received is, I think it's been the theme of this conversation, is to understand where my gifts lie and to be focused on doing the things that bring me joy, that I'm really good at, and letting go of those things that I'm not, and not try to be an expert in all the things.
What a way to finish. Well, I'm enjoy being able to talk to you today. So thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Of course. And thank you for having me. This has been a blast. I love it.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.